Welcome back to Spotlight. Joining me now is David Trott. He is the Republican congressman from Michigan's 11th Congressional District, and we appreciate him being here. Brand new to Washington. Your first impression?
Well, it's interesting. It's busy, and I'm pleased with. We got off to a good start. We hired our staff and set up our district office, and getting acclimated to my committees and understanding the process. I've been in business for 30 years, so the legislative process is new to me, but I think I understand why some of the things happen and getting used to how it works.
Yeah, it's a fast pace.
Yeah, unlike business, in business, if you have a meeting at 10 o'clock, they block off 10 o'clock, and in D.C., they put 3 things down for 10 o'clock, so you're running around a little bit.
They expect you to be at all 3 of them. Yeah. You're on Judiciary Committee, right. Also on Foreign Affairs Committee. Right. What is it you really would like to do on those committees? Because those are 2 very important committees, right. Very high-profile committees. Yeah,
very different committees. Judiciary marks up more legislation than any other committee in Congress, so we're busy working on patent reform and copyright reform and immigration issues. It's a very partisan committee. We rarely have unanimous votes in Judiciary. Yeah. But it's very interesting, and Chairman Goodlatte is a good chair of the committee, and Ranking Member Conyers is a great member as well, Dean of the House now.
Yes.
And Foreign Affairs is more of a bipartisan committee where we're working on foreign policy issues. So we've had hearings on Syria and hearings on Iran and Ukraine last week, and so we're working on trying to understand the president's policies.
Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, also a freshman there, was in here not too long ago, and she was talking about how much she wanted to work across the political aisle, work with her Republican colleagues, that they're getting things done for this state. And she said she had a brief conversation with you, or maybe it wasn't brief, it was a conversation with you, I think during the orientation, and you said, hey, we've got to find something that we can work on together for the good of the people of Southeast Michigan. And I think she said that the issue was going to probably be transportation.
Certainly we need to, make sure the Highway Trust Fund is going to run out of money in May, and we'll work together to try and make sure there's a way to keep that solvent and try and come up with a long-term fix. I think with her background as a very successful mayor, and I really didn't know her before orientation, and we became great friends, and we inevitably end up sitting next to each other at most of the orientation sessions. And I think the issue we'll end up working together on is she understands how effective local government can be, and so we're trying to figure out ways to push money and responsibility back to local authorities so they can spend the money more wisely and have greater accountability for results. And I think she did a great job in Southfield, and I look forward to working with her on, trying to free up some of the community block grant money that would come without strings attached, perhaps.
Certainly. Congressman, you sit on Foreign Affairs Committee. If there's a hot seat right now, it's in the Mid-East. Yeah. Your assessment of where you think the United States is, where we should be, the president's policies, is it working? This war on terror, is that working? Should we be putting ground troops in the Middle East?
Well, I think it's an extremely difficult situation. I think it's gotten worse under the president's watch. I think Congress, rightfully, both Democrats and Republicans, want to hear a strategy as it relates to ISIS before we give them authorization under the War Powers Act, which is a serious matter. And I think fundamentally there's concern among Democrats and Republicans in Congress that, let's take Iran for example. I think the president believes that there's some way to rehabilitate Iran and make them a productive member of the world community. They've been a rogue nation for the last 30 years. They hate America. And so there's many of us, Democrats and Republicans, that just don't trust the negotiations that are going on with Iran and their nuclear program. And it's really more of a philosophical divide. And I understand committing troops, and I'm certainly not ready to say that's what we need to do, but I wouldn't take any options off the table. And when the president came forward and sought authorization as it relates to ISIS, he eliminated at the outset a couple of options that I wouldn't have done.
Our relationship as it stands right now with Israel?
I think it's strained at the moment, but I think this too shall pass. We've always stood with our friend Israel. We need a democracy in the Middle East. I think the president understands that, and I think Congress most certainly does.
All right, we're going to take a little break. We'll come back with some more questions, give you a chance to get a little water. I know you're fighting a little cold here, so we appreciate you coming in when you're a little under the weather, and we'll be right back with Congressman Trott. Stay there. Gonna block it?
Well, we took, of course, the requisite vote to repeal for the 57th time, so that was exciting. I think the Senate is going to take it up, and I certainly know the President won't sign a repeal. We have passed some bills in the House to try and make some improvements to the Affordable Care Act. We passed a bill to define the work week to be a 40-hour work week, not a 30-hour work week. We made a technical fix to exempt volunteer fire departments because some of the volunteer fire departments around the country were in jeopardy because of the ACA and the cost associated with it. But I think we'll continue to look at it, and then of course we've got the Supreme Court deciding the Burwell case in the next few months, and I think Congress will be ready with an alternate solution if in fact the court rules that the state exchanges are a problem as far as the language of the law.
Congressman, I know you're just getting to Washington and you haven't been there for an entrenched period of time, but just from the little bit of time you've been there, from what you've seen already, Speaker Boehner, is his leadership working, or do you have any concerns that maybe he's not the right man at the right time for this job, given the opposition that he's had from within his own party?
Well, he's got a difficult job, and what people don't talk about is we've passed probably 45 bills so far, 43 of them in a bipartisan fashion. So we are getting some things out of the House. We'll continue working on the issues where we think we can get bipartisan support and get the President's support, and try and make a difference on those issues where the President and the Senate are willing to work along. But we had a couple difficult votes, and the Speaker, I think, was frustrated, but that's part of what makes our government work.
You think he'll weather this storm?
I think he'll weather the storm. I think the DHS vote last week is behind us, and a lot of people don't agree with how that turned out. I think the Fifth Circuit will stay the injunction prohibiting the implementation of the President's executive orders, and so I think that's a good thing. And then we'll move on and work on issues that are important to middle class and people that are looking to find jobs.
Congresswoman Candice Miller announced that she will not seek re-election after this term. Were you surprised by that?
I was surprised. She really is just a tremendous member of Congress. She's the only woman chair of a committee. She's very important on transportation issues. She's done a tremendous job protecting our lakes and our water in Michigan. She's widely respected by both sides of the aisle. And the best thing about Candice is there's just no games. She just tells you how she feels, and you know she's telling you the truth, and she does what she says she's going to do. She's been very much a mentor to me and very helpful, and it's a huge loss, but at the same time she's between being Secretary of State and clerk, I believe, and serving in the House for 14 years. She deserves whatever is next in her life and the next chapter. I wish her the best, but she's done a tremendous job for our country.
Can Michigan Republicans hold on to that seat? Because that's out there in Macomb County, which we often call the bread and butter county, and sometimes they vote Democrat and sometimes they vote Republican. More often than not, they vote with their pocketbook.
Oh, I think they can. There's a whole bunch of Republicans lining up, and it's interesting how quickly people move on from Candice's tremendous career and start talking about the successors.
Yeah,
but,
that's politics.
I think they can, and I think we have some real issues coming up in the 2016 election that will define the parties very clearly as to what issues are important to Americans, and I think it'll be an interesting election, and I suspect we'll hold the seat.
Prop 1, a little closer to home. I know you're going back and forth, but you still have to deal with our roads when you land that plane coming back from Washington. How are you going to vote?
I haven't decided, and I'm interested.
Still on the fence?
Still on the fence. It's a difficult issue. The roads are terrible. At the federal level, I'm keenly focused on the Highway Trust Fund that runs out of money in May. We've got to figure out a way to come up with a long-term solution so that contractors and communities can, put plans in place to fix our infrastructure. It's a little troubling how Prop 1 came to be because it's not a clean solution. There's a lot of special interests tied into it, with this group getting money and this group getting money, and I understand why they had to do it with education and the teachers union, but it's they're trying to appeal to a lot of different groups to get a broad-based coalition, and we just need money for our roads.
All right, so both sides have to work a little harder for Congressman David Trott's vote.
Absolutely.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for coming in.
Make sure you wash your hands.
I'll do that. You're a little cold, but that's all right. Thank you so much for coming in.